people used to say like, if you love what you do it for free. And I was like, wait, no, there's a different level. If you love what you do, they couldn't pay you to stop. And when I realized like how much money would you have had to give Steve Jobs to not work at Apple? The answer is there is no, it was not, you couldn't pay him. I'll give you $2 trillion, Steve, but you can't ever work on Apple. You can't build a product again. He'd say, no, he's not doing, that's not what he's doing. He liked hitting the ball. He liked making great products, some of the best products in the world. And he did that until he died. So yeah, I think that's, there's all kinds of people. Some people are like, hey, this is a good way, fast way to wealth creation. I'm going to start, scale, sell, and then they peace out. But I think the greatest founders, the people that are like, they're doing it for other reasons.
I'm going to show you how great I am.
This was our tiny tower.
I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody.
Hello, and welcome to How to Take Over the World. This is Ben Wilson, and this episode is a conversation between myself and David Senra, host of the Founders Podcast. We talk about the most important lessons we have learned from studying history's greatest leaders and founders, what the greatest and most important biographies are that we would recommend to anyone, the power of podcasting, whether anyone has it within themselves to become a founder, whether it's better to be Jeff Bezos or Napoleon, and more. I just re-listened to it, and I think this is a really fun conversation. David is just so engaging, and I think he has really valuable insights. So I think you guys will love this episode. Special thanks to Sierra for helping make this conversation happen. So without further ado, please enjoy this episode with David Senra. All right, what's up? It's David Senra from Founders Podcast. David, how you doing?
Good. I feel like we're doing podcasts all the time like this. We just never record any of our conversations.
Yeah, we talk a lot. You've been super generous to me with your time and with your money, and you've advertised on How to Take Over the World, which I really appreciate. And we do kind of similar things. So I thought we'd talk a little bit today about, I don't know, just the stuff that we always talk about, right? Which is, we've got podcasts about people who achieve great things and how they do it. And this is a lot of what we already talk about. I guess I want to start off talking about, like, you've been doing this for how long now? You started in 2015?
Almost 8 years. Almost
8 years.
By the end of this year, I'll be over 400 biographies or autobiographies read for history entrepreneurs.
And like, so many of the lessons are the same, right? That's what makes it so powerful, is you find these like common things amongst a bunch of people, and then you're like, oh wow, this is a really powerful lesson, because if all these people are doing the same thing, that means it's really powerful. But I guess the opposite side of that is, do you still find things that surprise you, like new lessons, or do you feel like it's reinforcing a lot of the same stuff at this point?
You're pretty religious, right? You go to church every week. How long?
Yeah, every week.
That's every week. So I grew up like fundamentalist Christian, like to the point where like my mom, when she got cancer, like she tried to like, her first thing was like trying to pray it away. And when I mean fundamentalist Christian, I mean like there's a guy named like Benny Hinn. He was like famous in like the 80s and 90s, and he'd be one of these preachers where like you'd go to him and he'd like blow on you or like hit you in the head and say like you're cured of cancer. So they're pretty like, in my opinion, like extreme, but like the benefit of that is like I essentially was forced to go to church every Wednesday and Sunday for like most of my childhood. And what I think the best description of founders I've ever heard is like that it's church for entrepreneurs. It's like when you go, you're obviously Mormon. I grew up Christian. It's not like you guys go to church on Saturdays or Sundays. It's Saturday, right? Sundays. Okay. It's not like this Sunday, the preacher is going to be like, okay, enough of the Bible. Like we're going to move on to another book, or we're going to talk about this other guy. And so I think if you actually look through, like, I'm very interested in things that last a long time. Most of the people that you and I read about, it's not like, oh, they had a new idea and they changed professions every year. No, they had an idea and they did it for a very, very long time. And I think if you look at things throughout human history that last a long time, you can actually draw a lot of lessons from it. So like, countries last longer than companies, but religions last longer than countries. So like, why do religions persist and endure? And I think a lot of it is like, one, they usually have some kind of sacred text and like a book that they read from, or they like constantly revisit. They obviously have like a leader. And then they gather together in certain frequencies with like-minded people. And I think there's actually a lot of analogies there that you can draw and like put to companies. So what you hit on is absolutely right. It's like the things that most excite me is not necessarily novelty, even though that does occur every once in a while. It's these ideas that people that didn't know each other, that lived at different times, lived in different parts of the earth, and worked in different industries, all arrived at the same conclusion through experience. So yeah, I would say that I find like interesting applications. So like, let me give you an example. I just did this episode on this guy named Todd Graves, who's the founder of Raising Cane's, which seems like a weird thing for me to cover. Other than like, everybody always asks me like, who are my favorite living entrepreneurs, since I studied dead entrepreneurs, and I keep bringing up Todd Graves. I'm like, who the hell is Todd Graves? I was like, he's a guy with a $10 billion chicken finger dream. But like, all companies need to figure out a way, like, how do you finance a company at the very beginning, right? Now, his application is very unusual. Like, he went and worked shift work as a boilermaker, working 95-hour weeks for 5 to 6 weeks at a time, fixing things in refineries. Then from there, he learns from his other boilermakers, hey, you make a lot of money if you're willing to risk your life and you go up to Alaska and work the summer on these boats where people are falling over and dying. If you survive, you'll make a bunch of money. He lived in a tent to do that. That's a new application. Then he saves up his own money. Then he scrounges up some startup money from his bookie and this boilermaker named Wild Bill. So like, the idea is the same, right? You need to figure out how to finance your company that you want to start. Sometimes it can be through customers, the bank loans, venture capitalists, whatever case is. This guy's like, hey, I'm going to risk my life. I'm going to live in a tent, and then I'm going to borrow money from a bookie. So I would say mostly I feel like I'm just telling the same story over and over again every week through a different personality, and that's what makes it powerful.
What you were just saying reminds me a little bit of that quote that you quote a lot from, I think it's from Charlie Munger, which is take an idea and take it very seriously.
Find a simple idea and take it very seriously.
There it is. Find a simple idea and take it very seriously. And I think that's true more often than not. Before we hopped on, we were talking, I was talking about John D. Rockefeller and how he wanted to work for one of these big firms in Cleveland. He goes to interviews with every single one of them. Every one of them says no. And he's like, all right, well, I'll just interview again because I know exactly what I want. So he just goes 2 or 3 times. And I think so often people think they need to find a novel approach and they don't at all. There's another good quote from one of the British generals in World War II. And they asked him about the difference between American and British problem-solving approaches. He says, Americans don't solve their problems. They overwhelm them. It's like, so often you actually don't need to solve your problems. You actually just need to overwhelm them.
I love the episode you did on Horatio. What's his last name?
Nelson.
Yeah, that was so good. And the especially when he's just like, this is my time to die. I'm not going anywhere. I love the ending. This is something you and I talk about a bunch. I remember when we were together in Austin, it was like one night it was like me, you, and like Cliff Weitzman, and we were talking about podcasting. And we were talking about your podcast a lot. And then, I had a bunch of like thoughts, and then I was like, wait a minute, how many episodes have you done? And it was like 90. I was like, there's nothing to talk about. Like I had 90 episodes. Nobody was listening to my podcast. I have 391, I think now, because some of them aren't numbered. And it is just, I've tried to overwhelm people with it. And even though I'm 8 years in, like, let me give you an example. I'm really like kind of nutty about this, where I just got invited to like this fancy invite only investor conference. There's only like 15 people there, right? And more than half the people had listened to Founders or whatever. But I found the people that didn't listen to Founders, and I hunted them down. And literally I would go and talk to them, and I'm like, hey, let me see your phone. And our mutual friend Patrick O'Shaughnessy was there. And this happened a few times where he made a comment at the conference. He's like, I wish I could find a way to make money on David's ability to turn literally every single conversation back to podcasting. Because he would just like, this guy would be like, yeah, I bought this company for $1 billion and now, it's worth 20 times that. I'm like, oh, that's great. Have you heard of podcasts? I would literally like grab the guy's phone and you'd show up and I'm like, oh, here it is. It's on Spotify now. Follow. It doesn't matter what the episode is. You might not know who it is. When it pops up, just press play. Listen on 1.5 speed. That means in 40 minutes, you'll be able to listen to a whole episode that this guy spent 40 years, building his company, and I spent 40 hours reading, and you can listen to in 40 minutes. So I do think, I believe in that, like the constant pressure, constant promoting. If you're proud of what you're doing, and I'm very proud of what I'm doing, like I have no problem, telling people about it. And, and the way you do that is like, it's a very noisy world. Like, so I'll tweet constantly. I will post constantly. I will repost things because, dude, I repost episodes. I guarantee you now, because you have more followers, more people listen to your podcast than ever. If you have a great episode, it's a line from David Ogilvy where he's like, you're not advertising to a standing army, you're advertising to a moving parade. I just put up this episode by Chung Ju Young, who's the founder of Hyundai. I think it's like episode like 117. I did it like 5 years ago. Every week, somebody would reach out to me about listening to that episode. I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. Like, that one really resonated. So I spent a few hours re-editing it, cutting it, and doing everything else, and then republishing it. And then now a ton of people listen to it that didn't go 300 episodes back in my back catalog and find it. So yeah, I'm shameless about promoting my work, because I think, without a doubt, I know if people listen to it and they apply the lessons, like, it will make their life better.
Yeah. So you're like this crazed evangelist, which I love about you. And you're a complete obsessive about founders and about podcasting. Was there anything before podcasting like this for you?
Reading. Just reading. Like, I have a very weird, I think of an odd personality in the sense that, like, I need a ton of solitude. Like, I'd be fine if half of my conscious life, the time that I'm awake, I could spend completely alone. And if I'm alone, it's like I'm very curious in general. So like, I love to read and love to learn, and just like, I don't know, I like to understand things. I want to have a better understanding of the world. And then I'm really looking for information that can help me like prosper in the world and make my life better. And the reason I know the information that I share on the podcast is beneficial because it's like made my life better. So I figure, if I just sit down and record it, it's an active service to other people and to make their lives better. But no, I don't have a lot of passions by any means, other than I really like to work. I get annoyed, like I'm about to go on vacation. I'm like kind of annoyed about it. I'm kind of going against my will. And if people knew what the vacation was, they'd be like, this is incredible. But it's like the time away from podcasting. But at the same time, my kids are excited. My wife's excited. But yeah, it's just working, podcasting, reading. And I really like building my business. Like it's addicting. It's fun. It's what I'm going to do. I mentioned this in the Todd Graves episode I just did, where, Todd was talking about, he's been doing the same business for 30 years. He owns 90% of his business. It's worth at least $10 billion. He's been offered billions of dollars. He's just like, I'm on a God-given mission. Like, I'll never sell. And they're like, are you worried? If you think about it, in the QSR, the fast food restaurants, all corporate owned, all the founders are gone. So he's like, who are you competing against? He's like, non-founder led companies, mercenaries, not missionaries. They're run by accountants. And his point was like, he was asked like, who do you fear? And he's like, I fear the young guy that has the same fire that I do, that is coming directly at me, And his point was like, that's fine. I'm all for competition. But if you're going to do that, just know like, this is my life. You better get up early. You better go to bed late. You better be working every day. And I mentioned the podcast, I recorded that on a Sunday. I was laughing because I'm doing the outline and I just happened to look at the clock and it was 9:05 p.m. on a Saturday night. And like, I'm doing exactly what I wanted to do, which is like work on the podcast.
I mean, and one of my big takeaways from both what you do and from that episode in particular, which I really liked, was it's chicken strips, right? It's
chicken fingers.
Chicken fingers. Wow. Is there a difference between chicken fingers and chicken strips?
No, but he never uses the word chicken strips. He's like, I'm on a chicken finger dream. He's very adamant about that. Yeah.
It's chicken fingers. But he takes it very seriously. He does it very well. And when people are looking for startup ideas, it's often just like, again, what we talked about at the beginning, take a simple idea, take it very seriously. Is there just look around your room. Is there nothing that you can think of that could be better? Like it honestly, people overthink things a lot, I think, which is you can just take something very simple, just make it as good as it can possibly be. And that's an idea right there.
So James Dyson, who I'm completely obsessed with, I've done 4 episodes on. Every 100 episodes, I'm rereading his first autobiography. So I'm about to come up on episode 400. That'll be James Dyson's autobiography, because I think it's really important to reread books again. We kind of spoke to the influence of religion. And I think revisiting the same ideas over and over again is really good. But he makes that point in his first autobiography. He's just like, well, listen, if you can just improve an existing product, the good news is you don't have to invent the market. Now, inventing the market is a phenomenal way to build a monopoly. You literally can define and create the category that your product operates in. It's just extremely rare and really hard. And his whole point was just like, there were vacuum cleaners forever before I started. And he wound up just making the world's best vacuum cleaner. And even now, am I ever going to buy another vacuum cleaner that's not Dyson as long as he's alive? No. And it's like, you can buy a vacuum cleaner on Amazon for like $30. I think it paid like $600 for mine or $500. And it literally is the best one in the world. And I think like the insight there is exactly what you described, where it's like, dude, go to all these fast food's been around forever, multiple decades. It appears shortly after the invention of the car. And it's like, go to McDonald's and eat their chicken and go to Raising Cane's. You just tell me the difference. And I just introduced my brother and sister who never had it before. I was just visiting them. And I was like, have you guys ever had Raising Cane's? They're like, no, what's that? And I was like, dude, we got to go. And I went, and the store that I went to just opened up and it's completely packed. It's like they have a cult-like following, and he positions all his stores around competitors. So across the street, Wendy's, not a single fucking person in the drive-thru at Wendy's. And you have 200 people trying to get into the Raising Cane's across the street. And again, I think this is just people aren't paying enough attention. It's just like, what do you use in your daily life? If you're looking for a business idea, like, what do you use in your daily life? And like, this sucks. Guess what? There's no chance in hell that you're the only person on the planet that also thinks this thing sucks.
Yeah. Right. That's definitely true. By the way, Raising Cane's, you love it. You think it's that good.
I love fried chicken. Yes.
I went for the first time. They opened one in Utah and I went and I was like, it's good.
What better fried chicken place?
Well, maybe I'm just not a fried chicken guy, because there's nothing I can tell you that I'm like, oh.
Yeah, okay. Some people don't like fried chicken, but if people eat fried chicken, it's going to be one or two on the list.
So if you've been listening to How to Take Over the World for a while, you know how important it is to have the best team around you. Great performers can give 100 or 1,000x returns on your investment. And that's why I'm incredibly proud that this episode is sponsored by the Austin Lab by Shokworks. They are the best in the business when it comes to creating AI processes and agents for your business. They have an incredible team of researchers and implementation specialists to hold your hand and make sure that you have a successful AI implementation. And they take a very consultative approach. And they have a ton of experience. They've got a global portfolio with over 150 successful implementations across the world with businesses of all sizes, from small to medium-sized businesses to huge enterprise implementations. They are a truly top-rate AI team, one that I would trust with any aspect of my business. And the best part of working with them is they only win if you win. They only make money if they save you money or grow your revenue. And they have a proven track record of doing exactly that. They can generate more than 40% cost savings and 30% efficiency gains. And they have done this, again, across hundreds of successful launches and implementations. So partner with the best. You won't regret it. Learn more at austinlab.ai. Again, that is Austin, as in the city Austin, Texas, austinlab.ai, and let them know that I sent you. So, we've been talking about ideas that are very simple, that are very, often you just need to take ideas more seriously, do more, be more serious about it. What is the last idea that you stumbled on that you're like, oh, this is new, this is interesting, and really changed the way you thought about the world?
Oh, AI, for sure. I was like, I'm always very skeptical of everybody rushing into trends. I think that's, the mimetic nature of humans is something that's been well documented. It's obvious if you just open your eyes. And so I kind of resisted it. And then I started using it. I'm like, oh, this is absolutely incredible. And so now I use different AI apps every single day. I built my own to keep track of all the other stuff. So again, the other idea, we'll come back to that. The other idea about finding a simple idea and take it seriously, that's a great Charlie Munger quote. There's also one that's related where he says, we often find the winning system in business goes ridiculously far, minimizing and or maximizing one or a few variables. And so I think in our trade, same situation. It's if you look at my note taking, how I organize my highlights, the bookshelf behind me is literally, if you start in that upper left-hand corner, the books are all organized in order by episode number. I go ridiculously far, in this case, maximizing one or a few variables, which is organizing the collective knowledge of history's greatest entrepreneurs. And that is this flywheel effect where it's when I did the Todd Graves episode, for example, because I have all this information organized and I can pull it up and summarize it, and then I also spend hours every day rereading past highlights, I'm able to do an episode on Todd Graves, but then I made a list of all the other founders I compared him to in that episode. So it was Rockefeller, David Ogilvy, Steve Jobs, Fred Smith, founder of FedEx, Phil Knight, founder of Nike, Peter Thiel, Harry Snyder, founder of In-N-Out, Sam Walton, the Red Bull guy, James Dyson, Daniel Ludwig, who's the Invisible Billionaire, Michael Bloomberg, Henry Ford. And so that's another example of maximizing one or a few variables. In this sense, it's like the one variables I'm maximizing. It's not good enough for me to make an episode about something because we forget, as humans, we forget that we forget. I go back and reread a book that I've read 4 times and I still forgot certain parts of it. I'll go listen to a podcast I did 5 years ago. It's like, oh, I forgot about all that. So we forget that we forget. And so this is where now, if you actually look at my consumption habits, I'm using Claude every day. I'm using OpenAI every day. The deep research feature from OpenAI is the jump from Google to the first, ChatGPT. That jump was huge. And then I feel OpenAI's deep research feature is as large from, the normal AI chatbots to that is freaking incredible. I've been using it to make episodes, and literally the lines that people will give back to me, they're not even the books. They're from OpenAI's deep research. So I use, I subscribe to them all. I built my own, obviously, called Sage. I use that every day. I use Perplexity every day. I use Claude. I use OpenAI. I can't think of any other ones, but like that's a truly unique technology.
Yeah.
Are you using it at all in your research?
I'm not using it very much in my research.
Are you using it in your day-to-day life?
I use it somewhat in my day-to-day life.
I think you should it's so important. Most people, what they do is as they age, they this is why technology is like a young man's game. My friend Ravi Gupta wrote this great essay called AI or Die. And his whole point is like, these tools are so wonderful for people like you and I in general, for super productive people. You force yourself to spend a few hours every week learning how to use this. I listen to these AI podcasts to get ideas. And I even think it'd be a good idea. Bill Gates had this idea where he'd do these think weeks, and this has come up in the books a few times, where it's like, you gotta get away from your day to day. And he would bring a bag of books, and he'd sit in like a cabin or something. I can't remember where he went. And he would just, no internet, no nothing, just read and think for like a week or two straight, maybe like a week. I think I'm going to start doing that, but not just reading, is like literally trying to consume and make myself get good at using these tools. Because so much of the value extraction is dependent, because we're in the early stages, so much of the value extraction is dependent on the person, on how you're able to prompt, on how you're able to use them. It's not like just picking up your iPhone. My dad can barely read, right? But he has an iPhone, and he literally doesn't use email or anything else, but he has one app on his phone. It's TikTok, because TikTok doesn't ask anything from the user, just to scroll and and it'll serve everything up. AI is not, it's the opposite. You've got to learn how to extract all the power that it has out. And the only way to do that is to literally treat it like a part-time job or like a course. Like imagine if you went back to an MBA, just like, okay, I'm going to do an hour class every night on just learning how to use AI.
Do you use it at all to structure your notes or your thoughts, or you just use it for research?
So not like to structure my notes or thoughts. So like here, I have an AI trained on, it's not even trained. I have an AI that just, the only thing you can use it to search is all of my notes, all of my highlights, and all of my transcripts.
Yes.
And that alone is nuts. So like right now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 of, it's called Sage, 15 tabs in my browser. And so like I use it a lot when I'm reading too. Or like I'll be out in a conversation with a friend of mine who's usually a founder. Actually, I don't talk to anybody that's not a founder. And they'll just say something, or they'll have a question, and I'll prompt Sage because of this. Or like, let me give you an example. I just used I just made the Todd Graves episode, and this is the unfair advantage. This is why, like, I told me and you have talked about this over and over again. Podcasting is like one of the most valuable tools to learn that humans have ever made. And they're some of the most widely misunderstood. People that are outside of podcasting don't realize how powerful they are. And so therefore, anything I can keep doing to keep getting to the top of my profession, like every hour I can spend getting better at podcasting or understanding it at a deeper level, is better than 10 hours working on something new. And I think what I've done here is like I have an unfair advantage against other podcasters, and just gonna keep fucking compounding. And so I'm sitting here thinking about Harry Snyder or Todd Graves. I'm like, man, this guy is so much like the In-N-Out founder. It's essentially what I feel like. Todd Graves is Harry Snyder, who's the founder of In-N-Out reincarnated, except they're separated by 50 years. Todd Graves founded Todd Graves founded Raising Cane's, I think, in 1996. In-N-Out was founded in 1948. And so I just asked, because I've done deep episodes on Harry Snyder, I asked Sage, can you give me the most important ideas from Harry Snyder and how he built In-N-Out? And within 15 seconds, it's like a complete list of all the innovations he made. Everybody has gone through a drive-through and spoken at a speaker, right? Hey, what do you want? I'm at McDonald's. I want a Big Mac. Harry Snyder was the one that invented that, right? I forgot that. I did the episode. I forgot that. So it just goes through all the stuff he did, how he was different from his competitors. And it's probably 600 words. So it doesn't take that long to read. Maybe 800 words, but it immediately reminded me of all the main ideas from that. So yeah, I think I told you before, if you organize, even if you don't, I happen to people ask for my notes and highlights so much. So this stuff actually turned into a product and an extension of the podcast. But even if you don't do that, I think you should definitely think of all the reading and research you're doing. You should have it all, and I can connect you with the people that can build this for you too. But I would be layering an AI assistant on top of all your research, and I think every professional is going to do that. And I think you're going to be able to buy or subscribe to the AI assistants from other professionals, just because I'm already proving this. There's thousands of people that pay to get access to Sage.
So this is good, because I always I produced half of all the episodes I produced last year, which was a big jump up for me.
That was your problem.
I had about 100 episodes at the end of 2024, and I produced 44 of them in 2024. And the way I was able to get my production up so much is I just copied your process. I was like, all right, clearly I'm not doing this well. And this is the whole hypothesis of my podcast. You can just copy people, you take their playbook, and it's a great way to do it. It's like, I'm just going to steal. And you were obviously very open and very willing to share, which helped a lot. And so I just started, I was like, all right, I'm using Readwise. I'm taking notes exactly how David takes notes, but I don't have it all. So one of the things I want to talk to you about a little bit more is your process. So I know how you take notes, which is you read, you highlight, you like to physically highlight, red pen, ruler. Okay. And then you go afterwards and you kind of read back through it. You take pictures of it and index it in Readwise. Mm-hmm. I'm a little less clear on what happens then. So then you've got all your notes. How do you go about structuring it? Do you just leave it chronologically and then you just kind of read through and talk it through as you're on the podcast, or what does that look like?
Yeah, basically. Now, Todd, some of these episodes are different, where Todd Graves, there's no book. So what I did is he's got 2 in-depth podcast interviews. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just turn these into, I'll get the transcripts and essentially make a miniature book. And then I went through the transcripts just like I did for a book, right? The process is always the same. And I don't, one of the most boring things, this is actually, we can talk about too. I think the best analogy for podcasters is actually filmmakers. Because you mentioned being open with your process, or we share a bunch of information. It's just it doesn't, I did 6 episodes on all these filmmakers, the greatest filmmakers: Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, Quentin Tarantino, Christopher Nolan, James Cameron. And what you realize, a lot of these people knew each other and they would help each other, because at the end of the day, it's people are oh, is Ben a competitor? I was like, no, he's not a competitor. Because you could, just in the same way that you could go watch Steven Spielberg's Jaws one week and go watch George Lucas's Star Wars the next week. It doesn't affect Steven Spielberg at all. So I don't understand, most of the podcasters I know are very positive. Some, there's 1 or 2 that are kind of weirdly competitive. And they have bad reputations and they are getting smoked by the other people. So yeah, I think if you have something, especially in the world and what we do, is if I give you information and you make a better podcast than me, then you deserve to win. I don't know what to tell you. It doesn't bother me at all. I want to win because I want to make the best product possible, regardless of what anybody else is doing. So one thing I learned from Tarantino, though, of all these filmmakers, is he's like, it doesn't make any sense to do everything in perfectly chronological order. Think about how he makes his movies. He's like, no one tells stories that way. No one says, hey, Ben, tell me about your life. And you're like, well, I was born on, January 1st, and then I went to kindergarten. It's like, no, you jump around. You talk about the fact when you met your wife, the time you had your first kid. Talk about the relationship you had when maybe your dad taught you how to ride a bike. It's not chronological. And so I don't feel the need to organize and to like go through, what I want to talk about. And another thing is like, I'm not trying to summarize a book. I'm trying to say hey, I spent 40 hours reading about this interesting person. Here's like the most interesting parts to me. And you're smart. You want to know the whole story, but then you can pick up the book. I linked to it in the show notes. But yeah, that's really all it is. It's like the process is more taste and intuition, anything else. Like, and all the episode all the end result is like, this is what's most interesting to me. And the thing that's changed over the last like 2 years is now I spend 1 to 2 days in between when I'm done reading to when I sit down to record. And all that is cutting. It's like, I may have had 50 things that I thought were interesting, and then you just read and reread and read and reread. And then you're like, no, don't need that. And then just cut. This is an idea I got from Walt Disney. And I don't even know if it was conscious, but he talked about it was so expensive to animate back then that you had to do the edit before you did the drawing. And I was like, that's a really good idea. So I edit, I still edit it after I record too, but most of the edit happens before I record.
It's so interesting to me that because I've heard you say on podcasts or interviews or maybe the panel we did or something, but I've heard you say, I don't know anything about storytelling. Like I'm a storyteller. I don't think about storytelling as a craft. But to me, you're a very good storyteller for exactly that reason. Is I feel like most people feel the need to just, I need to flesh out the details here. I need to get across the information. And you just have no compulsion about that. You're like, no, I'm here to say the interesting things. I'm going to move directly from interesting point to interesting point, and that's it. I'm cutting out everything else.
I think it's heavily influenced because Tarantino's always been my favorite filmmaker. And if you look at, like, go watch Pulp Fiction. It's like 5 main scenes. There's huge chunks not missing, but you'll put it together. If they're going to listen to Founders or How to Take Over the World, I don't think you have a bunch of idiots listening to you. It's just it's like there's so many other options for people that are like dullards. I'm not making a pod. People always like, I'm not making it for the mass population. I have no interest in I'm trying to make the best podcast for the best people in the world. That's literally what I'm doing. And so those kind of people, it's like, dude, they can read between the lines. They'll fill shit in. They're smart. You don't have to like hold their hand.
So this is brilliant because I've been reading Thus Spake Zarathustra by Nietzsche because I'm working on a Nietzsche episode. And he has a quote that's basically exactly what you just said, because you just go, like you say, stories and aphorisms are what
people remember.
Yeah, what people remember. And so that's just, you just go straight from story to story, from aphorism to aphorism. And in Thus Spake Zarathustra, he says, in the mountains, the shortest way is from peak to peak, but for that one must have long legs. Aphorisms should be peaks, and those who are addressed, tall and lofty. So that's exactly what you just said, that like, he believes in writing going from aphorism to aphorism, from intelligent thought to intelligent thought, skipping over everything else in between, and only addressing yourself to people who are smart enough to get it.
People are they vastly overestimate how much information people can retain, right? And so like there's a great example of this in one of the books I read on Steve Jobs, where mostly he knew like an ad should have a singular focus. The homepage of Apple would have a singular focus. All their advertising they would pick one feature and stick on it. And every once in a while he would deviate from that. And he's like, okay, for this ad, I want us to list 5 reasons. And the guy that was running, I forgot, it was like he's like one of the best advertising agency founders. Of course, if Steve wanted to use them, that would have to be the way it is. And he goes, Steve, let me show you something. He rolls up 5 pieces of paper and he goes, and he throws 5 balls of paper at him, and Steve catches none. He goes, that's a bad ad. Now he rolls up, crumples up 1 piece of paper, throws it at Steve. Steve catches. He goes, that's a good ad. It's like, they're going to listen to an hour-long How to Take Over the World or an hour-long Founders, and they're going to remember 1 or 2 things. And this line about like breaking things down into like what do I actually remember? I love aphorisms. I'm obsessed with maxims, right? There's a maxim on my computer screen that I'm looking at right now. It says, do one thing relentlessly. There's no explanation needed. It's just like, reminder, 4 words, I know exactly what to do now, right? And I can use it as a principle to guide my behavior. But even the idea of why this is important came from another aphorism where David Ogilvy says, you can't save souls in an empty church. And so when he was selling advertising for some of the best brands in the world, he's like, you have to make them entertaining and memorable. because you can't save souls in an empty church. We can sit there and we can educate for all we want. You think about all these professors that they're great like history professors, but then they get into podcasts. I'm like, why is nobody listening to my podcast? And I've talked to some of these people and I listen to it. It's like, because your podcast is fucking boring. You didn't understand that they're sitting in your class not because they're not there to learn necessarily, right? They're like, you have like a captive audience. There's all these weird reasons people go to college. It's the degree, it's the insurance, their parents made them, whatever the case is. Podcast is fully opt-in. You can't save souls in an empty church. Ogilvy is just like, it has to be entertaining. It has to be fun. Doesn't mean dumb down. You don't have to dumb it down. You just make it interesting.
I'm interested in this though, because I agree completely. And you're so open and generous. And you talked about podcasting is like filmmaking. It's not zero sum, it's collaborative. But one of the things you've been talking a lot about recently is secrets and the power of secrets. So how do you kind of square those two ideas, right? Because it's kind of the idea of secrets and having powerful secrets is kind of the opposite of what you're talking about.
Our business is different. Like, let's say you're some of the most valuable companies in the world outside of like energy, right? It's like B2B SaaS. Like if you look at like who wants to advertise on Founders or Invest Like the Best, like these giant companies, because like some of the most valuable companies in the world, they're selling to businesses. Facebook sells to businesses, Google, Microsoft, Salesforce, all of them, Oracle. So that if me and you are competing, like you need a database provider and Oracle loses that, right? That contract to somebody else, like that is a zero sum game. You're not going to have two database providers. Or you're not going to have two, whatever the case, in many cases, like you're going to pick one. So in that case, you should be secretive if you have an edge. That is a zero sum game, right? For us, it's like it isn't like that. No one listens. Very few people listen to one podcast. And I think I had like, just because I've heard this anecdotally, we were at one of these events where these like old rich guys would come up to me and they literally like, I didn't even know what a podcast was. I only listen to yours. But that's like the tiniest percentage of like podcast listeners. Most of them listen to, a bunch of them. So it doesn't take anything away from me. Now, if you're like a Rockefeller and you want to acquire every single one of your competitors and one of your smaller competitors gets that acquisition that you don't, then that's a bad thing for you. Like you can't let that happen. And so that's why, he shrouds himself in secrecy. He had all these, you've read all the books that I've read. Like I love the idea. It's like, fuck these Rockefeller guys. Like I'm not selling to Standard Oil. I'm going to sell to you because, we have to stand up against them, not realizing that he secretly owned that company too. Like right. The best. He's just like the greatest entrepreneur of all time is obviously Rockefeller. I don't even know why people debate that. But yeah, so I can't think of anything. I can't make somebody listen to a podcast where it's like, here's the features of my product. It's almost like picking a podcast, like picking a friend. Like if I asked who your best friend is, you're going to say like, what do you like about your best friend, Ben? And you're going to like, oh, he's smart and he's intelligent and he's thoughtful. And they're like, yeah, but this guy's smart, intelligent, and thoughtful. Why isn't he your best friend? It's more of like a messy, like human, like emotional.
It's a relationship. It's the most relationship driven medium by far.
That's not when, like, I like this bottle of water. I don't have a relationship. I drink Mountain Valley nonstop. Like, I don't know who, like, this is the brand of water that I like. So this is the one that has won my loyalty. Podcast is not the same thing as that. I'm trying to think is there a secret I don't tell any other podcasters? Most of it's like, they just won't do it anyways. Like, it's like, everybody wants to compete with Todd Grace. Well, are you going to do the same thing for 30 years? Right there, you knocked out 99.9999999% of humans ever lived. They just cannot do that. I went on Greg Eisenberg's podcast recently. He's just like, how do I do what you do? I'm like, what do you mean? He's just like, you have like this recall of like everything you learn and like there's no script in front of you. You're just coming off the top of your head. I was like, I do one thing, you do 10. Like you're just not going to do that. It's like people cannot. There's something that is in my personality where I like simplicity. I like doing the same thing all the time. That is I didn't even understand. It's very rare for humans. So no, I could give away all my secrets, and one, people still won't do it in podcasting, and two, I do think like power laws rule everything around us. Podcasting is obviously the same thing. There's like 350,000 active podcasts right now, meaning that they've updated at least one episode in the last month, and probably 98 of them are bad. 98% of them are bad. Like this is happening. Have you been paying attention to what's happening with TBPN with John Coogan and Jordy Hayes?
Yeah.
So, I've been talking to John about podcasting for a few years. I've been trying to help him as much as possible. I thought he was a very talented person. He just had the wrong format. I tried to get him on Colossus. I've done a bunch of stuff. And so I've been like talking to him and Jordy every step of the way throughout this whole thing. And now it's funny because it's like absolutely ripping and blowing up. And everybody's trying to analyze like, why is it? And they make these lists. And it's just like, there's one guy made a list of like 1 through 5 reasons TBPN is working. And I was 1 through 5 is they're talented. Everything that you just said is derivative of the fact that they're actually talented. And so like I talked to a bunch of other podcasters and they're like, hey, can you help me in my podcast? And they're growing. And I listen to it. I'm like, let me ask you a question. They're like, what? I go, when you're at dinner, are people captivated by your presence? Like, are they? Are they like, do they find you genuinely interesting? Right? And they're like, not necessarily. And I'm like, yeah. It's like, dude, this podcast is straight energy transmission. It's like, one, you either need to be super charismatic, right? Like a Joe Rogan, whether you like him or not. Like he's a gift. He built an empire, a giant empire with his mouth. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me if you like him or not. It's just like unbelievably great conversationalist, undoubtedly, right? The idea you can have 3, the people see that, they're like, I could do that. No, you can't. It's so difficult. Right. Yeah. So you either have like, you're a great conversationalist, you have this like, you know, people find you interesting, or you're just super obsessed. The most interesting people in the world are the most interested. This is where like me and you could play, where it's just like, I will just go out and collect more information about this topic, this very focused topic, than anybody else in the world.
I think there's like a big, like one of the problems with this is, so for example, I play tennis, okay? And I was playing tennis at the local college on some of their courts. And the college players were playing next to me. And so they play at BYU, it's a Division I program, really good tennis players. And when you watch those guys, they are moving so fast, they're hitting the ball so hard, they're running so hard, you can really tell, right? And you're like, whoa, I could never do this. I could never compete on that level.
Yep.
Then I went to the US Open and I'm watching Djokovic and Nadal, the best tennis players in the world. And they are so good. They're so good. They're so much better than the guys I was playing next to at the BYU courts that it changes all of a sudden. I look at Nadal and I'm like, I bet you I could play with him. But I obviously know I can't. But in my head, because he makes it look so effortless
yes,
that you're like, oh, I could do that. And it's the same thing when people are at the very top, when they're looking at someone like Rogan, they're like, I think I could do that because he makes it look effortless. Yes. But the truth is he's a top 0.00001% conversationalist. And the same is true of Jordy and Coogan, that like they're really talented and they're actually so talented that it can sometimes hide how talented they are. And so people think they can do things that they can't do.
Yeah, 100%. And then they're also smart enough. They think like, I told you, the biggest problem with most podcasters, they think like podcasters, not entrepreneurs. You're an entrepreneur. It's like, this is your product. And Jordy texted me about this the other day. Me and him and John were talking about this, where he's just like, there's already people trying to copy them, which they don't understand. You know, people try to copy like what we do. It's like, oh, I'm going to do a podcast about books. You think it's about the books. It's just like, you're missing the point.
Yeah.
And Jordy's like, the good news is, if you want to compete with us, you have to quit your job. So it's like, we're like, literally, Jordy called me at like 5:30 in the morning his time. They're obviously in California and I'm in Miami. And I'm like, 8:30, it's ringing. I'm like, what the hell are you calling me at 5:30 in the morning? He's like, I'm driving to the office. Like, they take their shit very seriously. They are streaming 15 hours a week, 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. To do that, you literally have to quit your job. Those guys are gonna, they're already blowing up. They're just gonna continue. It's gonna be the Sherman March to the Sea. And it's obvious. Like, I was the one that actually stole their presenting sponsor was Ramp, and obviously that I really help out on essentially Ramp's podcast advertising. And the deal was like, they had no really small audience this time, almost none, and the deal was like substantial. And I was like, and Ramp's really cool. I'm really close with the founders, and so most of the time they're just like pull the trigger. And there was a little like debate. I'm like, I'm telling you, no fucking debate. This thing's it's going to take off. I promise you. And Eric, the CEO and founder, called me there. He's like, I can't believe this, because like what looked like an expensive deal will now look like a great deal because the growth and the fact that every single clip has the Ramp yellow logo in the upper right hand corner. They're doing Ramp ads it's blown up. I was like, I told you. Like, it was obvious. Most podcasters they don't take it seriously. Most of them are not talented. And like, these guys they're gifted in both of those domains, and they also think like entrepreneurs. So they think about the marketing and the branding of their podcast. They think about how to get in front of most people. Like, it's perfect. I'm so happy what's been happening with them.
First, a word from our sponsor, Gains in Bulk. Creatine is the best and most tested supplement in the world. Countless studies have showed its positive effects on muscle growth, yes, but also recovery, endurance, and cognitive performance. That's why it's the only supplement that I take every day. And Gains has the best creatine. They have instantized creatine, which is fully water soluble, making it more bioavailable, so you get more benefit without the bloating and water retention that other creatine can cause. I really think this is the rare case of a supplement being truly differentiated and better than the competition. So check it out at gainsinbulk.com and use code BEN for 20% off. Again, that is gainsinbulk.com and use code BEN. So speaking of talent, do you think everyone has what it takes to be a founder?
No, hell no. No. I love Naval Ravikant, the book that our mutual friend, I don't know, are you friends with Eric? You met Eric Jorgensen. He's another tall guy with a deep voice like you. So yeah, the Almanac of Naval is like one of the best books I've ever read as far as like changed the way I approach my career. And there's something he says in there. He's like, there's 8 billion people on the planet. I think there should be 8 billion founders. That's probably the only thing I disagree with him on is like, there's just no way that'll ever happen. Absolutely not. No, I think there's a deep desire in human nature to want to conform and to want to be part of consensus in a group and to want to be led. And if you're like that, you should not be a founder.
I think that's true. But there's a lot of status with being a founder, which there didn't used to be. But now there is. So how, like, I find it's a tricky thing a lot with people who are like, I want to be a founder, but you can just tell in their disposition, it's like, no, you don't. Do you meet people like that a lot?
No, those people don't last. So like you mentioned Novak Djokovic, who's like, I really love his crazy philosophy and everything else. And there's a great article that he did in the Financial Times in 2018 that I found from this guy named Graham Duncan. And he says, like, they asked him like, how much longer can you do this? Like at this level. And at the time he only had like, I don't know, 4 or 6 majors. Now he has the most in the world. And he's like, I can carry on at this level for a very long time because I like hitting the ball. And the follow-up's like, what do you mean? It's like, well, there's some tennis players that they're not playing for the right reasons. They don't actually just like hitting the ball. Mm-hmm. And he's like, can you tell? He's like, yeah, I can tell. I don't judge, but like, you can definitely tell their motivation is wrong. And so, I think that's the same thing with like founders. It's like, to me, some of the, like, it doesn't matter like other people's motivations. Like I try to mind my own business, right? Rule number 2 in the Senra family is mind your own business. That's what I teach my kids. I think a lot of people get in it because they want to make money. And some people, if they just care about getting rich, yeah, you can do it. But the people that last the longest amount of time, the people that you've read a bunch of these biographies of the founders, like they didn't stop when they were independently wealthy. They just like the act. The analogy I have there is they like hitting the ball. And if you like hitting the ball, like the example I would use, I remember where I was specifically. I was with my wife at this place called Harry's Pizzeria next to the Design District. I don't think it's there anymore. And I had this like epiphany, right? And this is the problem of being obsessed with what you're doing. It's like you're supposed to be on a date and I'm thinking about founders. And I remember realizing I was like, oh wait, I'm wrong. People used to say like, if you love what you do it for free. And I was like, wait, no, there's a different level. If you love what you do, they couldn't pay you to stop. Uh-huh. And when I realized like how much money would you have had to give Steve Jobs to not work at Apple? The answer is there is no, it was not, you couldn't pay him. I'll give you $2 trillion, Steve, but you can't ever work on Apple. You can't build a product again. He'd say no. He's not doing, that's not what he's doing. He liked hitting the ball. He liked making great products, some of the best products in the world. And he did that until he died. So yeah, I think that's, there's all kinds of people. Some people just, they don't give a shit. They're like, hey, this is a good fast way of wealth creation. I'm going to start, scale, sell, and then they peace out. But I think the greatest founders, the people that are like, they're doing it for other reasons.
You mentioned rule number 2. What's rule number 1 of the Senra family?
Maintain situational awareness. Too many people are out in public, not paying attention to their surroundings. Just pay attention to what's going on. So like my daughter does really good situational awareness. We were just in New York and like she was walking in front of me and you could tell it's like, hey, that guy over there with no shirt on, yelling at himself and there's snow on the ground. Go to the right. Like she avoided him. She understands what's going on. You hear these crazy stories where people get like pushed in front of the subway and stuff. My kids that would never happen to my kids. They know, stand back to the wall. Don't let anybody behind you. Maintain situational awareness. We do this all the time. Like I've been like this forever. Like if you're in a restaurant,
very practical rules.
But if you're sitting in a restaurant, I'm always facing the door. Like, no, you just know you have to know what's going on around you. And so yeah, I teach my kids this.
So you mentioned Djokovic, and you've done a few founders episodes on people who are not strictly founders of businesses, right?
Yeah.
So you've done Winston Churchill, you've done Napoleon. Who else have you done that's not strictly a business
I think they're
founder?
all, so if you think about the definition of an entrepreneur, it's like somebody has ideas and does them. I think like it's not that you have to like start a company. It's like the same personality type. Like if, the market economy is what? You're talking about 200 years old, 250 years old. Like people are always like, oh, do this episode. This guy lived like 500 years ago. It's like, there's really no like market economy. So it's kind of hard to like draw lessons from there. But like if like Rockefeller was alive today, right? Who did Rockefeller most admire? Napoleon. And that's like, Rockefeller didn't talk about anybody. And he would not shut up about Napoleon. That meant if Rockefeller was born, 200 years earlier, highly likely he's like taking over a country, how to take over the world style, than he is like building the world's most valuable, oil company. So yeah, I've done, I don't even know, like, let's see. I've done a bunch of world leaders, a bunch of athletes. I did Michael Jordan. I've done.
Oh, that's right. You done Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant,
Yeah.
Tiger Woods.
Yeah.
Have you done Da Vinci?
Yeah. Episode 15, but it's not good.
Well, the reason, because you talked about like these people, these are the same personality types, conquerors and founders. And I have found, as I've done a bunch of these episodes, a lot of them have very similar personality types. Da Vinci was the first one I read where I was like, now this is different. One of these things is not like the others. This is a brain that like, I don't even know what to do with. Your brain functions differently than anyone I've read about. And
what did you think made it, like, give me an example or elaborate on that.
So for example, like what we were just talking about, he was so relentlessly curious that there's no way he could have done the same thing for 30 years straight. Right. I actually couldn't see him really being, you could see him being a successful founder just because he's so damn smart. He's so smart, but he could never be like a great founder like a Steve Jobs because he just didn't he had too much curiosity and not enough focus.
Yeah, I would say like more of like an inventor, if you really think about it. It's like, think about Thomas Edison. I've done a bunch of episodes with Thomas Edison. Like he invented 4 or 5 things. He didn't work on one thing his whole life, but he was always inventing. So I think of that as like Buffett is the greatest financial genius in history, but he didn't work on one company. He had like everything's in Berkshire, but inside of Berkshire, you have all these other things. I feel like a Da Vinci's like that. An Edison's like that. It's like the act of what they're doing, which in Buffett's case is like turning a pile of money into a bigger pile of money, right? Da Vinci's case, he's like inventing all the things, drawing, making some of the greatest paintings. Edison is like, Edison was like way more commercial in the sense that he says like a sale is proof of utility. He doesn't want to invent anything that won't sell. But his career is rather consistent. He was just working on different things. But the theme that runs through all this is that he was like inventing the whole time.
One of my favorite parts of the life of Edison is really early on, he's a telegraph operator. And then he's actually still working, but he's inventing at the same time. And he's totally obsessed with inventing. And his family is worried about him because he's like not bathing regularly and he's just like not sleeping and he's totally haggard and he's like selling his possessions in order to get more materials to invent with. And it just dawned on me like, wow, this person is an addict. He's an actual addict. Like if you substituted inventing with just meth or heroin or anything else, like it'd be very clear what he is. It just happens to be that he's addicted to something that's very productive. But it's probably not like actually a well-adjusted person from that regard. Like, do you think it's possible to be a great founder and be just normal and well-adjusted?
I'm trying to think if I've read anybody about that's normal or well-adjusted. I don't think there's one thing that's related to this, like, I don't think being like a psycho or like an asshole is like prerequisite for success. Like Rockefeller is the perfect example of this. Like never said an unkind word to people that worked for him for decades. Never, like one time they ever saw him lose his temper. Very polite. No, I don't think. I wouldn't call any of that. I don't feel you think I'm a well-adjusted person? I don't think I am. Like, you know me pretty well.
I think you're a well-adjusted person. I think you're a nice person. I don't think you're a normal person.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I think everybody you read about and everybody I read about is like they're just outliers. They're like completely, they deviate so far from the norm. They look like a different species to me than like just some random person you'd bump into, you know?
Yeah.
I think that you can have massive success with consistency over intensity. If you can like consistently do the same, like build your business and let it compound for 4 or 5 decades, you don't have to like, you don't have to burn everything. But like, I think you could have a great marriage, you could have good friends, you could take care of your health and still be wildly successful too. Now, a lot of them don't do that because what you just described with Edison, like they are completely addicted. This is one thing I'm worried about in the sense that like, I like working on my podcast and building my business and getting better at what I'm doing. And there's very few other things that I like to do more than that. And if I don't watch myself, you know, I could mess up all different other areas of my life where like, I know I want to have like a lot of memories when I get older and good relationships and friendships and everything else. So like, I'm very, you know, aware of that and kind of try to put guardrails on myself.
Yeah. Do you like being, well, first of all, I guess, how famous are you? How famous are you? How often do you get recognized if you're out in public?
Out in public, almost never. If I'm at like, it depends on where I'm at. Like if I'm at like Capitol Camp, or if I'm at like, I'm like a normal, like if I'm in New York, like very rare, like once or twice on just random street, right? Well now, like
Once or twice per day?
no, like I was just up in New York. I probably got recognized once or twice in like 5 days, something like that.
Got it. Yeah.
And again, most of them are just like, love what you do, shake hand, and they literally like they're cool. Now I'm doing way more videos, so that may change. But like, yeah, my goal is to never be like, I first of all very introverted in general. I love, one of my favorite things to do is like be able to walk around a city and like think. So I would never want to like get my face so well known that I can't do that anymore. That'd be very bad for my life, I think. But no, I would say I don't ever think of myself as being famous at all. And I think it's unhealthy if you start thinking about these things. And the only time I ever notice that people react to me differently is if I'm at like a gathering of entrepreneurs and investors. It's the only time.
The Acquired guys had like a big New York Times article about them last year, I think.
Yep.
Have you had anything like that yet?
No.
Interesting.
No.
Have people tried?
Like smaller publications. It wasn't New York Times. That was the Wall Street Journal. Like literally you couldn't get a better, if you're a business podcast, there couldn't be a better write-up than the one that Ben and David, they did in the Wall Street Journal. It's excellent. No, there's been like technology publications, stuff like that.
Huh.
But again, my thing is like it's like more narrowly focused. I mean, it's called Founders. Like, and even if you think of like there's a ton of business owners in you know America and in the world, but like it's never going to be like wide. This is not like Mr. Beast widespread. Like you just never would be into this stuff.
It's interesting. I guess I started asking about fame a little bit just because I forget sometimes, because in my world, like you're pretty famous. Of like the people I interact with every day on Twitter, like of the people that I associate with every day that I mostly talk to, that I read their stuff, I'm talking like 90-something% of them know who you are. You're famous in that group.
Yeah, but that, again, I don't think about that. This is the best thing, is the fact that like all I did was for 8 years, I trapped myself in a room and read and followed my own natural interest. And then I, you know, exposed that to the world. But I don't I feel the same. So a good friend of mine actually pulled me aside the other day, because what has been happening recently is there's some people that like I've heard really grotesque. One of them went viral, like grotesque stories about how they treated other people. Like that dude, like I'm reading that story, I'm like, that guy's a dick. Like this is crazy. And then I found out who the person is. I'm like, that guy is so nice to me. He's like not even nice, but like sweet as can be. I was like shocked. I was like, he's like nothing. And this kept happening. And one of my smartest friends, he pulled me aside. He's like, I don't think you understand. He goes, what? He goes, everybody's going to be nice to you. And I was like, why? And he said, it's very similar stuff that you said. And I was like, I don't feel that way. Like I never, ever think about anything. I don't think this is a negative side. There's a bad side to focus. So I think I have the one of my assets, like extreme levels of focus, but I also kind of like don't think about other people, and not in like a mean way. I don't think I've ever been mean to you. Like we talk all the time, whatever case is, but literally I don't think of the external world. I just like burrow into my own world. I love this maxim that says mute the world and then build your own. That's what I'm trying to do. Like, I'm going to go on TBPN later on, and they want to talk about NVIDIA. And I was like, I don't know anything about them. They're like, you did a podcast on it. I go, no, I did a podcast on the founder. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know any, like, I don't listen to news or press reports. I can talk about the founder all day long and like how he was raised and how he thinks about his company and everything else. But like, I don't know anything that's going on in the world. Like, I just assume if there's a war or there's a pandemic, that shit will come to me, right? But like, other than that, like, I don't know. Like, shocking. Like, I remember going on vacation with a friend of mine, and he's like, "Watch this video," and they mentioned this guy in this video. So it was a clip from Lex Fridman. I go, "Who's that?" And he looked at me. He's just like, "I forgot who it was." It was like somebody high up in like the Russian government. I was like, "I don't know. I've never heard that name before. I don't know who this is." And it's like everybody's talking about this guy. I was like, "I don't know." So again, I don't ever think about it. I think it's unhealthy to think about it. I think you should just literally try to focus on making a product that makes somebody else's life better and just do that for as long as possible.
What about like, I mean, so like basketball, you like basketball. You used to like to watch basketball. You don't really watch basketball anymore.
No. Well, no.
Do you miss it?
No. Once I pass something, I don't think about it. Like it's funny, like this will happen. Like, somebody will bring up something and it'll like randomly make me think of like a memory from like, I don't know, years ago. And I'll tell a story or it was like, oh, that's kind of like this thing that happened in the past. And my wife, who's known me for, I don't know, 15 or 18 years or something, she's just like, I never heard that before. I was like, I don't like thinking about, like, I study history. I don't like thinking about my own history. Like, I don't like thinking about the past. Once something ends, I just like keep moving on. I don't think about it. Yeah. So I don't have like nostalgia. Like, I actually went to a basketball game over Christmas, and I was like, all they do is jack up threes now. Like, I don't like this game. Like, this is not, I don't miss anything. No, man, I just like my mission. I like my mission. Like, that's really it. My mission, my friends, my family. Like, there's nothing else in life other than that. Your health.
It's really interesting to me. I did an episode recently on Donald Trump, and Bill O'Reilly said about him, he's fundamentally not an introspective person. And it just reminded me of so many other founders where it's just like this really odd personality trait that you just notice between them. They just are reflexively not introspective. Like, the funniest is when people ask Steve Jobs about him being adopted and whether that had any impact on his psyche. And you'd expect him to either be like, yeah, that really changed who I am, or at least be like, no, that had nothing to do with it. But instead, he's just like very flippant. He's just like completely not introspective, right? He's just like, yeah, no, I don't know. You know,
this is the weird, like, I don't have many controversial takes. And I would say, like, I like our corner of the internet because, like, we're just history nerds and we read books, and like, I don't think I'm controversial at all. You know, I'm not trying to be intentionally provocative. I think, like, I know you can get a lot of attention online like that, but it's like the shittiest attention. It's like, my entire life is organized to keep me away from like large groups of people. It's just like, you just absolutely look at what I'm doing. It's like, my friend, we were just in New York. He's like, let's go on the subway. It's like, absolutely not. And it's just like, he's like, the car is an hour long. I don't care. Like, I was raised around such bad people inside of my family and other people around us. It's like, I've seen enough of that. Everything I do is to get me away and to be able to control how I spend my time, who has access to me. Nothing gets better in my life. This is why I don't go to basketball games. There's like 20,000 other, I'm not interested in that. I'd rather be reading and with a small group of people. And so one of the most weirdly controversial takes that people like, I don't even know why they get upset. It's just like a weird thing to get upset about is the fact that it's obvious, what you just said. History's greatest founders, low to none introspection. Not just low, none. And what I mean is there may be a lot of introspection, but once they find what they want to do, there's not a lot of dilly-dallying. Sam Walton did not wake up every morning like, I wonder what I'm going to do today. No, he knew. He's like, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to solve some problems and I'm going to make Walmart a little better. And I'm going to keep doing that. And then I'm going to hunt some quail in the afternoon, maybe hit some tennis balls, fly my plane, and try to build another store and just do that over and over and over again and go to church on Sundays, spend time with my family. And that was his entire life. The problem is, like, modern humans, they're afraid of commitment. Because, like, the act of committing is not just that you're committing to one thing, it's you're saying no to everything else. People want, like, this excessive amount of optionality. It's like, I'm not looking around like, what should I do for a living? I'm going to do podcasting until I have a fucking voice. That's all I care about. So I don't wake up like, what should I do today? I was like, I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna read. I'm gonna make podcasts. I'm gonna keep doing what I do and do this forever. And that's like thinking about all this other stuff. Like, you're gonna get recognized. What about this? Is like, I don't care. Like, I don't know. I'm just gonna keep doing this. And if that happens, then I'll come up with some kind of solution to it.
Yeah. I've always, the analogy in my head is, it's like a shark that smells blood, right? When you find a great founder and you're like trying to stick a microphone in the shark's face and you're like, hey, why are you chasing this thing that you smell bleeding? It's like the shark.
That's what I do.
Even if it tried to introspect, it doesn't know.
Yeah.
All it knows is it smells blood, and like, please stop sticking a microphone in my face because I need to eat. And I think that's true of like when people find the thing that they were born to do, it's really hard to get them to think about like why that is. I don't even know that they have insight on it.
But this is why, like, me and you have talked privately. It's like, Ben, what's all these other distractions? You're like launching this agency and you're doing this other podcast. It's like, dude, do you understand how rare it is? So the only person that can answer that question is you. Nobody can help you figure out what you should do in life. It's like you just either know it or you don't. And sometimes you have hints that maybe people are still unsure about it. But one thing I told you is like, dude, the idea that you could even make a podcast and be good at podcasting is such a rare skill, like unbelievably rare. Think about how millions of people have attempted it. Most of those millions have quit already. There's only like 350,000 of them still going, and 99% are never going to go anywhere. And you've already cracked this thing. If you love it, I would just keep pushing and, as much as possible. And the question is like, is this the thing that you want to do? And it's normal to waffle. Like, some people waffle like, oh, I should like start a company or I should do this other thing. It's like, the only person that can answer that question is you. And I find reading life stories very helpful, because then I think of like, oh, I feel that way. Oh, I'm like that. Like, oh, cool. And like, I'm almost like watching game tape on how they live their life. And then now I can adjust my life when I go out and play the game of life tomorrow by this little tweak based on what I just learned yesterday. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's interesting. Do you have like one or two people that you really think of that these stories have really stuck with you and you feel like you resonate with them, and this is someone that you feel like their soul is like yours in some way and you really want to be like them?
Yeah. So I am obsessed with, so it's very different. Like, think about in the entrepreneurship, there's like an entrepreneurship like ecosystem now, which never existed, especially when I was younger. And so now it's like, it's heavily dominated. Most of the media that founders and entrepreneurs consume is actually created by investors, which is like weird dynamic there, because they don't always have like the same, your interests aren't always aligned. And what I'm obsessed with is not like the public company CEO. That's cool. I think Jeff Bezos is one of the greatest living entrepreneurs. What he built in Amazon, fucking incredible. I feel I'm one of the few people maybe on the planet that feel he deserves all the wealth that he's created. He created a magic button that I can press and anything that I want shows up in my house in a day or two later. Not including all the other businesses, the cloud computing, everything else he's done. He's built one of the most complicated, difficult businesses that have ever existed. And he did it better than anybody else by a long shot. And I'm glad he has $200 billion, whatever. What I feel is, for me, what would be the apex of entrepreneurship is like a privately held, 100% owned business, right? Like a James Dyson. So the answer to your question is like, the idea that he owns 100% of his business. He doesn't have to answer to a board. He doesn't have any shareholders to answer to. He answers to his customers and his employees. And he builds what are the best products in the world in his category. So for me, it's like, that looks a lot like what I'm trying to do on a much smaller scale. And then you take away from like how big these businesses get. Michael Bloomberg's the same way. The founder of Red Bull, he only owned 49% of Red Bull, but he turned down multiple acquisition offers where his 49% would have given him $20 billion, because he had complete control. He didn't want to go public, didn't want a board of directors, didn't want all that other stuff. And then some of these businesses can grow. Like the people some of the entrepreneurs I most admire, I meet, and they're like hidden. They'll never write a book. They won't do anything. And they're like family held companies. And when you get close to them, and I've visited them, I've gone to their offsites, I've gone to their offices, I've gone to their warehouses. They look like they built entire worlds. Like entire worlds. They have, they control everything. It's just fascinating. And then some of these businesses, like, there's all these reports and you can never really know. But from what I hear, on a good account, like, think about James Dyson. He's like 75, 76 years old, owns 100% of his business. I've heard, and I don't know if this is true, that he's been pulling, $5 billion a year out in dividends. And if you look, you could kind of, there's hints because like he owns like more sheep than anybody in the world. He's like the largest green pea producer. It's like you've run out of things to invest in when you're just like your business is throwing up billions and billions of dollars. It's like me and you taking a paycheck of $5 billion a year after year after year after year after year. And I know somebody that controls a large base capital, and they're looking, their base capital is getting so big that they keep having to buy bigger and bigger companies, right, to move the needle. And from what I heard is they approached to see if Dyson was open to selling. And just a paraphrase, this is not a direct quote, but I thought it was hilarious. The response to, would you be interested in selling, is, fuck you, this is a family heirloom. And so it's just like, I deeply admire that, where he's just like, I'm not doing it for money. I'm not doing it so I can sell this and have the biggest, I already have more money than I know what to do with. Like, what am I going to do with more money? And this is where like you can have a single podcast, a single book, or sometimes a single conversation change your mind. Where Sam Zell, the 2 hours I got to spend with Sam Zell, literally more than any conversation I've ever had in my life, including the one I had with Munger, changed my life more than anything, because that was his point. He's just like, at a certain level, and he was very wealthy, but he wasn't like the richest person in the world, but he had already run out of things to spend money on, to the point where like he was making money faster and he could give it away. And his whole point was just like, the things that you own tend to start to own you. He's like, I have a place in Chicago. I have a compound in Malibu that he spends 38 weekends a year at, right? And then everything else he just rents, right? He's like, it's somebody else's problem. And he goes, there's only one true luxury in life. He's like, David tried to get to private jet money. And his whole thing was like, the only thing that's true luxury for him was the fact that he used his private jet like 3 hours a day. So who knows what he might have been spending like 10 million a year flying. But 10 million a year seems like a lot of money, but not when you have $10 billion. Like, he's just never going to come close to that. So again, at those kind of levels, what's the difference?
Do you believe that? Do you live by, are you trying to get private jet money? You believe that this is the next?
So here, I think it's really smart to take the advice. Have you ever flown private before?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like twice.
So, okay, yeah. It's like completely different. Like, it's not twice as good. It's not 10 times as good.
Yeah.
It's 100 times as good. So
right.
My whole thing is like, I'm not going to do things that I don't want to. I'm not going to like let people entice me. There's a great piece of advice in Chuck Yeager, the guy that broke the sound barrier, in his biography that I read like 4 years ago. I still remember. He's like, his obsession was just like flying and pilots. He would like fly and he liked hang out with pilots. So he's like, one thing I'm very proud of myself is like, I never let them tempt me with promises of more money or status or prestige to do something I don't want to do. My point is, I think if I look at it from an entrepreneur, it's like, yeah, podcasting is one of the most undervalued assets in the world. I think like I'm going to keep getting better at it. I'm going to build better businesses around it. And I think there's going to be multiple billionaire podcasters. I've been talking about this for years. And some people say you're fucking crazy. And then they see some of the numbers that Rogan makes and they're like, oh, maybe it's not that crazy. It's just like, it's not even has nothing to do with podcasting. It's like, if you would have said there's going to be multiple billionaire musicians, people are like, no, you're crazy. Now there's a ton of them. You see these billionaire YouTubers. No, it's never going to happen. Yes, there's going to be a ton of them. Like, it's just everything. Billionaire athletes. Of course it's like that. It was just obvious to me sooner than it was to other people. So like, yeah, like out of the things that I would want to spend money on to build wealth on, yeah, private. I don't even have to own my private plane. The funny thing is,
how much money is private jet money? It
depends. Like if you're Sam Zell, like he's like, I'm not. Again, I think my goal as like some people literally have like they wake up with a burning desire to go to an airport and get on a plane. I'm not one of those people. I prefer like when I spend my summers in California, I like those kind of trips. You fly, you stay there for 2 months, and like you actually live there. I hate these like short trips. Yeah, the short trips. So like, but I mean, there's a guy on Twitter named Preston Holland that could tell you all about this. My point being is, people can figure out the economics or whatever they want and how to do it on their own. My point being is like, I think the larger thing here is like optimizing for money after a certain level. It's just like all your life is literally just how you spend your time.
this is like,
and I know a ton of
guess
people that,
this
hold on, let me finish that. I know a ton of people that fly private that are fucking miserable. So it's
Yeah,
obviously not the solution.
like, and I guess this is part of the wonder of entrepreneurship is that like, and just life in general, is people will get interested in stuff that I would just never be interested in, and that's okay. And if Todd, what's his name? Todd Graves?
Yeah.
Like, he has a chicken finger dream. And in my head, I think, why? Who cares?
Yes.
And it almost boggles my mind that you're not in it for the money. Why are you not in it for the money? At the end of your life, you're going to die, and Raising Cane's apparently makes good chicken strips, but you're going to leave behind a bunch of fast food restaurants that more or less resemble the Chick-fil-A across the street. And that was your dream? That was your dream.
I would say that a few people have said that to me since the episode came out. It's like, Todd, all that means to me is like Todd Graves is ahead of most of humanity, because most of humanity doesn't even have a dream. I don't care that his dream is chicken fingers. I just care that he has a dream and he has a purpose, and he's identified that purpose, and he's made a commitment to it. And he also, for him, he believes it's a God-given mission. So he's giving a lot of money away to like charity to help people. Like, so chicken fingers, like, I'm really good at this. I can make a lot of money at this, and then I can use that money to help people. That makes perfect sense to me.
To me, though, I almost feel like it's a symptom of a sick world that I read these stories of Horatio Nelson and Napoleon, Alexander Hamilton, and I'm like, yeah, that's what a noble life is supposed to look like. Founding something that really lasts and endures and is beautiful and is a part of your identity. And people like Todd Graves are probably have that quality of spirit, but live in a sort of sick world where instead of building something like a city or a country or something truly beautiful and enduring, they have to have a chicken finger dream.
I don't have that same opinion. I think that we're obviously influenced by the circumstances we're born into. Like, how many people are starting new countries right now? It's just like I think that same kind of personality, depending on where they're born. Same thing with Rockefeller. Rockefeller was born, and he came of age. He was born in 1830. Came of age around the Civil War, right? There's a bunch of the robber barons were born in the 1830s. There's something very special and dynamic about the U.S. economy that they took advantage of then. And you place them 200 years before, and let's go back 700 years, and they might be more like Genghis Khan than they are, entrepreneurs. I just think, like, dude, how many people are starting cities and how many people are starting countries now? Nobody.
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We got to get back. We got to take over the world, David. That's you must return.
No, I say all I care about is, like, for somebody like that, he's like literally, he's and people say, oh, it's unhealthy, whatever the case is. Like, I don't know. It brings me a little bit of joy. I'm not going to eat it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but like, I like the chicken fingers, and he made my life, a little bit better in that 15 minutes than I'm eating and dunking his chicken fingers in the cane sauce. Like, I like stuff like that. I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
It's interesting to me. Like, so I'm doing an episode on Coco Chanel, and I've been researching her story. And to me, she is emblematic of, she's an entrepreneur who's very successful, becomes very wealthy.
Yep.
And she's having all of these dalliances and affairs.
The wealthiest woman in the world when she's alive, when you get to that part. Yeah. Not just very wealthy. Like, that deal,
extremely wealthy.
The deal that she has, where she gets like 2 or 5% of all the gross profits or gross sales, it'd be the equivalent if somebody came to you and said, Ben, I'm going to pay you $300 million a year. And in our contract, I have to take care of every single one of your living expenses. I've never seen, there's some crazy deals. That's one of the craziest deals in history.
Yeah. Although, of course, always is resentful of her Coco Chanel No. 5 deal, where she's getting 10% of what is the greatest product of her lifetime. When you're selling one of the greatest products of all time.
In terms of cost per ounce, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Unbelievable. It's like gold. But to me, it's interesting because she's also obviously attracted to the power and the allure of old world aristocracy, right? She's always having these affairs with these barons and counts and British royalty and Russian royalty. And to me, there's this interesting tension of, like, she comes along at the time, which is sort of turn of the 20th century and into World War One, where the old, the aristocratic classes really were driven by conquest. These were often descendants of the Norman invaders who'd come to England, taken it with the sword, and then said, we own the land now, and we get the money from it. And that's where they got all their money. And there's still this attraction to it. She's still attracted to that world, even as she herself is supplanting it with this new commercial world. And so anyway, I just think that like, even as that world has been supplanted, we cannot really get over the allure and the attraction, because the whole world is a series of games. We all choose the games we play, right? And I think there's a certain attraction to, but there's one game that's bigger than all the others. And those people who really feel like they are world beaters, that they're the greatest, they always have an attraction to that game. They want to play that game.
They want to play the Game of Kings.
Yeah, they want to play the Game of Kings. It's like that game isn't even being played anymore.
No,
so
definitely. It's like you get access in a different way now. Like, think about the power that like a person like Bezos wields. He's got almost unlimited money.
No, he's got he's
political influence. Absolutely. Like, it's not the same. Like, you're not going to be like a dictator, like a Putin kind of character without that. But like, in terms of if you're living in a free society, like the amount of power that you can wield through building one of the world's largest companies is just like unbelievable.
Kind of, but he's so restrained by social strictures, and I almost by social strictures. Like, his wife divorces him and takes half his money, and there's nothing he can do about it, right?
Yeah,
nothing
but
he can do about
he's already made all the money back.
Yeah. He's got plenty of money, but it just shows that like there is a very strong limit to the actual amount of control he has in the world. He buys Washington Post, and what does it do for? Like, you say he has all this political influence. What has he done with it? Then maybe he just has no vision for the wider world, and he doesn't really care about that. But I do think like one petty king in 1350 had more power than Jeff Bezos actually has.
No way.
Yeah, wait, 100%, 100%,
0%.
It reminds me of Caesar, who he's going through some little alpine village, and his friends are making fun of this like little village in a Swiss mountainside that, they're scratching potatoes out of they didn't have potatoes, but you get it, scratching wheat out of the hillside. And they're like, this place is pathetic. And Caesar goes, I'd rather be the first man in this village than the second man in Rome. And and I think there's like something to that like Bezos has all this money, but
I'm telling you, Bezos has built his own world. Then
why
there's
is he
with
these
people? Like, I'm telling you, they built their own world. Like,
just because the point is, we talked about Horatio Nelson.
Yeah.
And he basically he says to one of his captains who tells him, I expect to see you after the battle with a great victory and in command of 20 prizes. And he says, goodbye, Blackwood. I'll never speak to you again. And, and goes and gets shot at his moment of glory. And I just think that a life worth like that is, I view the world essentially artistically. Okay. And a life like that is so much more worth living than a chicken finger dream.
Depends on what he does with the money.
Does it though?
I'm taking Todd Graves' life over that. Like, I have to say.
Because I guess that's my point. It doesn't matter what he does with the money, because living a beautiful life is the whole sum of all of it.
Listen, I think the problem that people have that I apparently don't is they're like, that person's like X, I'm not like X, so therefore I don't understand that. And my point is like, yeah, I don't want to build a chicken finger dream restaurant. But I'm just glad that he found something that he's so interested in, and he finds it like addicting and fascinating, and he's trying to be the best he can at it. It's like irrelevant to me what people choose. Just like I don't want to be a basketball player. I don't want to be a public company CEO. There's all these other things I don't want to do. And I'm sure people look at me like, dude, I went to dinner one time, and there was, I was actually John Coogan, his two Lucy co-founders, and this other guy who I think is a YouTuber. And the whole time I talked about podcasts, and after that, John's like, they thought you were fucking crazy. Like, 'cause they were like, why is this guy addicted to podcasts? Well, like that, it's the same exact thing of you saying their opinion of me is the same as yours opinion of Todd. And my point is just like, it's not the actual like activity. I'm just glad. I don't care what people get obsessed with or what they want to do. I'm just glad that they have some kind of purpose for their life.
See, and I do care because I just, Todd, if you're listening to this is what I want to message. Hoist the black flag, take a knife between your teeth, start slitting throats. Your life could be so much more than
Why
this.
aren't you doing that? Why aren't you doing that then?
Because I'm not that guy. And what I am trying to do, that's why at the end of the day, and I know I talked to you about maybe changing the name of the podcast, but at the end of the day, that's why I've never changed it, is because that's what I really believe in is taking over the world. And I'm not that guy. Like, I can read about Caesar and just look at him and say, his character is not like mine. I could never be Caesar. If you threw me in that position, it'd be very bad for everyone involved, including myself. But I think I'm very attracted to that type of personality and that type of person and that type of vision. And I want to inspire others to take that on.
What do you mean by you look at the world artistically?
I think good and bad is ultimately an aesthetic judgment. Like, people try and quantify it. You've heard of effective altruists who are like, ooh, if I can chart the number of lives saved, then the best life is that which saves the most number of lives. Like, no, there's no value by which you can judge what is good and bad. It is a judgment of taste, ultimately. And so I think everything is artistic. Like, it can only be said to be good or bad off of taste. Do I find it beautiful is the ultimate judgment, I think, on anything.
How do you apply that to your own like life and work?
The way I apply it is
that like, I guess my better question, does that belief actually change the way that you go about building like your life?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Which is to say, if I didn't think that what I was building was beautiful, I talk about how all these people are essentially addicted, right? Mm-hmm. And they happen to be at least beneficial addictions, right? But if at the end of the day, it doesn't create something beautiful, then it really is just an addiction, even if it makes you money. That's the way I see it, right? Which, that's why I'm attracted to most of all founders like Phil Knight, Steve Jobs, because for them, it's not just about making money, for sure. And it's not even just about building business. Like, they have to create something beautiful. Yeah, they do have that aesthetic judgment.
The product, the company, Jobs has this quote that I can't get, I'm not going to get completely accurate, but directionally correct. Is like the point of companies only exist so we can build products. And this is like, and profits only exist so the company continues to exist to build the product. It's just like, I wouldn't build companies unless I wanted to build products. And those are also the founders that I love. I just did this clip, I just hired this guy that does my clips now. And the first clip he did was excellent. And titled Anti-Business Billionaires. Yes. And it's Yvon Chouinard from Patagonia, James Dyson, Steve Jobs. And it's just like, they're so obsessed with the quality of their product. And that is the first and most important thing. So like, let's say people have tried to actually hire me, like to work or run their company or whatever. And it's just like, no, that's a money decision. I'm like literally trying to build a beautiful product, right? Yeah. That's why we talked, I don't know if we were recording or not, but like why I won't outsource the editing, why like I don't think I'll ever outsource the editing, why I do the things that I want to do. It's like, I want to build the best product in my category for the most successful and productive people in the world. That is how I think about founders. And so that is what I'm trying to do. And I would rather do that and make way less money than be hired as a CEO at your company and for 15 times or 100 times the money. Because I also think like something I talked about in that clip is like if you actually build a great product and make somebody else's life better and you retain control, you'll get the money anyways.
I find that you have created a very beautiful product in Founders, even though it's so Spartan, right? No intro music. The cover art is literally black background, white text. Founder. Did you create that background, by the way, that cover art?
Somebody asked me the other day, they're like, what is the font of Founders? I go, I have no idea. I created it in 5 minutes and I paid $5 to export a high-res version out of an app.
That's amazing. That's amazing. You just like looked at some fonts and you're like, that looks good, right? Founders.
Yes. I like everything I do is just off my personal taste. Like there's nothing like, I don't think there's any other way to do it. What am I gonna do? Like, remember when you were, I want you to finish your thought in 1 second, but like, I remember you were starting to put like music into some of your episodes and you're like, hey, read this like thread. What should I do here? And it's like one guy's like, I love the music. The next tweet underneath is like, I hate the music. It's like, what should you do here is what you should have been doing the whole time, which is like make what you like. Because like every single person you put something on the world, they're gonna be feel to love exactly like it and like the exact opposite. And it's just like everything's personal taste. I went through, I was like, this looks good. Boom, done. And then people are like, well, what else? What other process? I'm like, there is no other process.
Yeah.
I listen to the episode before it goes out. If I like it, it's going out.
Yeah.
So what what point were you making about being Spartan though?
Well, I just think that like, I do think that what you do is like extremely worthwhile because I find, I'm just interested in how much you put thought into that versus what it comes naturally to you. And it just, from what you said, it sounds like it comes very naturally to you.
But it's more than putting thought into it. You could think about something for a few hours, few days. Your taste and intuition is molded over your lifetime.
Yeah.
And some of the stuff you won't even be able to understand because it's in your subconscious. I love what Cormac McCarthy's point where like he swore. He's, you know, I used to say he's my favorite living novelist. He just died. But if you just read The Road or read Blood Meridian, he's obviously better than everybody else. And his whole thing was like, he's like, it all comes from my subconscious. And he's like, subconscious is actually older than language. And that's where like he felt it came from. And so, it's not about like not thinking about it. But again, you think about it for a day or two, it's like, that's nothing compared to your entire life. You've been molded and your things you can't even explain. There's not language for why you believe some of the things you do or why you like some of the things you do. Somebody said it one time, I had to look up because I didn't eat sushi at the time. They said is it sashimi? What is it called?
Yeah, the type of sushi,
so it's a, they called it sashimi style podcasting. The fact that
that's very good.
The fact that I don't have any, like there's no intro music, there's no anything, there's just me fucking ripping through the book at 2x speed.
So you talking about intuition leads me like, it reminds me of, there's a phrase used by a lot of artists, poets around this sort of early modernism. They talked about spiritus mundi, the spirit world. Okay. And they felt like there was a spirit world of ideas, images, music, whatever that they were accessing, and they felt inspired by it. Do you ever feel inspired? Do you even think about the world in that way? Are you a spiritual person at all?
Spiritual, I don't know. There's this idea, there's this guy named Jim Simons who built this, the most successful fund of all time called Renaissance Technology. The fund, I think, was called the Medallion Fund. He just passed away. He made more money than anybody else in investing by a long shot. And, cause it's really like trading more than investing. And his biography is very fascinating. I'll probably redo it now that he passed away and it's like been a few years since I read it. But one of the ideas that I got from that is, people would walk into the office and there'd be like, he'd be laying on his couch, the lights were off and his eyes were closed and he thought he was sleeping. He wasn't sleeping, he was thinking. And he had this insight that if you like don't have any sound, like you have no input, right? So I don't meditate, I don't really pray, I don't go to church or anything like that. But like what I do is I will make sure that like my eyes are closed, whether I have a sleep mask on or I just close my eyes and I'm awake and then I can't hear anything, I can't see anything. And then I just kind of like just see what is going on in my mind, and it's just like, there's this weird thing that's like all this computation's happening in the background. And sometimes I'll actually fall asleep because it's relaxing. So that's a bad part. But a lot of times I don't. And it might be just doing this for like 30 minutes. And there's just some kind of insight that was buried deep in my subconscious that I didn't give my brain enough time to like open it up and think. I also walk, like if you look at my steps, it's probably like 15,000 steps a day, 20,000 steps a day. And half the time it's just nothing. Sometimes I'm listening to podcasts, sometimes I'm making phone calls, but other time it's just like walking and just like letting my brain just like no input. And I think what the problem is, like, we're all addicted to these screens.
Yeah.
People say no one reads anymore. Well, you're reading, but you're reading like captions and tweet size stuff all day long. Just like, it's just too much information. I desire to live in like an analog world. Like going back to the filmmakers who I draw inspiration from. It's like Christopher Nolan doesn't have an email address, doesn't have a cell phone, goes to a city, will ask for directions, won't even use GPS. Like, lives a very analog world. And you know, that's why I always read, like, it'd be way faster if I read like Kindle books, although a lot of the books that you cover on the podcast there are no Kindle version, but like I just would rather have like a physical book, just focus on that, nothing else. And I think I do want to get to the point where it's like, I don't want to look at any of these, I don't want to stare at screens all day. I want to read books outside and go for walks and like think about what's going on. So I don't know if you would call that like spiritual or whatever. It's just like making sure that there's this open communication from my subconscious to like my active mind, and making sure that like, you know, you leave that open. Obviously long showers, you swim. One of the reasons I like to swim laps, same things. Like you can't, I guess now there's like headphones you can listen to, but it's just like, you're just your head and your movement, and you don't have to think about anything because it's just like, you know how to instinctively swim.
So your like moments of inspiration, when they come from just those moments of quietude, and you feel like it comes from your subconscious.
Yeah, well, it's just like there's an interpretation that is subconscious. It's like when I read something and I'm like, oh, that spawned this other thought. I didn't like consciously like, let's think about this one sentence and now let's think how that. It's not like it's not a process. You know, it's just like, oh, this is it happens naturally. And so yeah, and I wouldn't say like, I don't know if I'm necessarily like inspired all the time. Like I'll watch and read the same stuff. Like I listen to the same songs, the same videos and stuff like that. I love like watching The Last Dance with Michael Jordan, Defiant Ones, which is one of my favorite documentaries, Jimmy Iovine and Dr. Dre. So I'll rewatch things and play them in the background, and I guess that's a form of inspiration. But it's much more of like a just a day in, day out kind of like access to interesting information that spawns other thoughts.
I was just re-listening to an episode that I did about Napoleon, and I was really struck that, you know, he was a French revolutionary, kind of very atheistic, very irreligious, or unreligious. I don't know if there's a difference there. But he really believed so strongly in destiny. And destiny was kind of his God. And he just really believed that his life had a purpose, that destiny was carrying him towards, and really his belief in a higher power. And it struck me that Steve Jobs was very similar, that he was kind of atheistic, kind of Buddhist, but like did not have a strong belief in God, but really believed that a higher power was kind of carrying him towards something. And I think that's true of a lot of these people. Even if they don't believe in God, they have to believe in some higher power that's carrying them towards some end.
Do you admire that?
I not only do I admire it, I think I find it necessary for truly great action.
So Todd Gray's belief is God
in chicken fingers.
Times they're like, why have you not sold your company for billions? He goes, because God made me great at chicken fingers so I can help people. And so like, you agree with him, but then you criticize him wrongfully, I might add. It's like, I don't know why you're being so mean to these people, but listen,
I'm not trying to be mean.
One of my favorite things about that Napoleon said, that I believe, he says, destiny must be fulfilled. That is my chief doctrine.
Yeah.
And so like, I believe that like, so before I record, and I haven't done this in a while, but for a few years, I listen to the same song over and over again before I record to get like amped up. And it's by this rapper named NF, and the title is called Destiny. And it's just like, I believe that I was meant to do what I'm doing. Like I was meant, like, I think I'm the right person, the right time, with the right set of skills. And I thought about this the other day, where it's just like, I would have been so fucked if I was born 20 years earlier. Like, podcasting didn't exist. Like, there was some movie. My son's obsessed with dinosaurs, and he just turned 5. And so I was like, let's watch Jurassic Park. right? Because I was like, I love this movie when I was a kid. I watched it over and over again. I didn't realize how scary it might be for a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about this. Movie came out in 93. And I'm like, I thought it was yesterday. I was just like, dude, I'm so lucky. Like an extra like 20 years earlier, it's like there was no podcast in 93. If I wanted to be, essentially you'd have to go on the radio. You'd have to go to a building and ask them to put you on so people can hear you speak. There were so many gatekeepers. It would never happen. I'm so lucky to be built or to be born at this time. So yeah, I feel like this is my destiny. I think people think it's like some for a long time it never bothered me. People thought it was like low status, and I remember somebody telling me that like you're a level 10 talent chasing a level 4 opportunity, and I was just like, you're fucking completely wrong about this. Like they're so powerful. And then now you think about all the people like the very successful and influential and powerful people that listen to founders, and it's like they're giving me an hour of their time. You know how valuable that is? It's like the opposite of what you thought it was. And it's because I actually chased my natural drift. I followed my natural drift. I didn't do it because I thought that was going to be the outcome. I did it because I was genuinely interested in it. And I was willing for people to say, like, this is a stupid fucking idea, David. And me be like, no, it's not stupid to me. It's not stupid to me. So like, I like it. I'm going to keep doing it. So I actually do think it's like my destiny. And it's like, I think we have you ever read Robert Caro's biographies of LBJ?
I haven't yet.
Oh my God. You're the perfect person to do. Who was the guy? There is a
Robert
podcast.
Moses?
It's in the book. The books are excellent. I think there's only one person alive that should be allowed to write an 800-page biography, and his name is Robert Caro. So most of them are just way too long. So there's a guy named W. Leo Daniel, okay? And W. Leo Daniel is essentially kind of like Trump before Trump in a way. And the way this is tied to like podcasting is he became unbelievably successful because he had like 90% market share in the Florida Hill Country, or Texas Hill Country, for radio. So he essentially became excessively famous as a radio person, right? And then he's making all this money advertising on radio, and then he realizes, hey, I should own my own radio show. So he starts his own radio show that he owns. And he goes, instead of advertising, most of the people at home during that time were like housewives. And what did all housewives need? They bought flour, cooking flour. And so he's like, I made all this money for this flour company. I'm just going to start my own show, and then I'm just going to like do my own flour. And he winds up like building this huge fortune, like $40 million back way long time ago. And it was just unbelievable. And then he's like, okay, well, what am I going to do with this like power next? And they're like, he's going to run for governor. And people make fun of him. Remember when all that, you did the clips at the beginning of your Trump episode where they're like, Trump's going to run. They're like, please run. We would love it. Please do this. Exact same response. And exactly what happened with Trump was like, people would go out and they were like, wait a minute, all these like rallies, political rallies, like you have his competition that has like 1,000 people, and W. Leo Daniel is like 10,000 people. Exactly what was going on with Trump. Same exact thing. So then he wins the governorship, which is hilarious. And then he moves his radio show and he's recording, broadcasting live from the Texas governor's office. And then again, what is he going to do with this? Like, what do I do next? Then he goes and runs for Senate against a young LBJ and beats LBJ too. So the point being is, it's like, I was naturally interested in podcasting. I thought it was interesting. I thought they were beneficial educational tools. And then I started to realize like how influential they would be. And then what happens is we just had this election where they called it the podcast election. And I talked to people in the Trump campaign before this. They knew they were calling it the podcast election before anybody, a year before anybody else was. And if you look at like the amount of free, attention he got compared to the person that, his competitor, it's like, you can just pull the public numbers. It's just absolutely insane. So yeah, I think like, so when I say, hey, I think podcasting is my destiny, I think like, I have a chance to like be one of the best people in the world at it. I'm personally obsessed with it. I think for a long time, people thought that was very odd. I'm sure still people hearing me say this thinks it's a little odd. I think it'll be as obvious as it is to me today to other people, 5-10 years from now, if not already, based on what's happened.
You segued perfectly into the last thing I want to ask you. You talked about this guy, radio show, huge public influence, starts his own show, becomes governor. When is David Senra running for governor of Florida?
Never. Never.
Never.
No, because again, like my whole thing, one, I think you just have way more influence. Like, I think you nailed it earlier. It's just like there's certain people. I don't think fame is the right actual way to describe it. So like I did this episode on Oprah, which I was actually really proud of. I think it was a good episode. And this is something that she understood is, she was on air 5 days a week. Same people were watching her for years. And they're like, I could have, she mentions this. So she talks about parasocial relationships. And she's like, I can have like an A-list actor. I can have Brad Pitt on the Oprah Winfrey show. And I see how people react to him. Like, they're like, oh my God, I love you, everything else, right? But they don't actually know him because he's like an actor. They know who he is and who he looks like, but like he plays a different role and he's like, essentially on screen, very distant from them, every few years, acting as somebody else, reading, saying words written by other people. Where with Oprah, they would come up to her like, so good to see you. Do you want to come over to my house for lunch? They just like the relationships, like I see how they act with A-list celebrities. They don't act like that with me. It's completely different. And so like, I actually think you would have more influence outside of it. I also think that, especially if this was like, so I listen to the Hamilton soundtrack all the time. I think it's like excellent. I love hip hop. I like history and everything else. And that would be different. If you're like the opportunity to create something from scratch, like a founder, I'd be very interested in that. To take over the as governor or president or whatever the case is, you're like running something that was built by somebody else. It's like being a CEO of a 200-year-old company.
Right.
There's way better people at that than I ever will be. I like starting shit from brand new. I like having control. I like being like the creator of it, not running something. I told you, people have offered me literally the CEO position of a company they started. This is like never tempting at all.
Yeah. Great. Well, I support you, Dave, whether you choose to run for governor or not. If you run for governor, I will support you, but I think you're making the right choice. I love founders.
Out of the two of us, it's obvious who should be the one that's in political office, and that's you.
No, I actually feel the exact same way that you do. I could not echo what you said anymore of like, what would be the point at this point? I really admire men like Alexander Hamilton, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington. And you do have to say, I do admire people like Trump and Obama a little bit, that at least start a movement. It feels like a new thing that they have created, right?
Yep.
But to just come into office and wield the office, that doesn't feel that exciting to me.
Yep. It's not artistic enough for you.
No. David, actually, I did want to ask you one more question, which is, I had a tweet the other day. I said, if I was put in charge, I'd have every young man in the United States read these 4 books. And I had The Wright Brothers by David McCullough. I had The Education of a Bodybuilder by Arnold Schwarzenegger. I had Endurance by Alfred Lansing, and The Right Stuff by Tom Wolfe. And you've got kids, so you probably think about this. If you had to put together like a book list of 3 to 5 books for every young man in America to read, what would be on your list?
That's a great question. Okay, so your 4 were Endurance, excellent book. I read that. Wright Brothers, excellent book. Education of a Bodybuilder, the first like 114 pages of that.
Yeah, exactly.
Those are excellent. And then The Right Stuff. So this is a really good question. So let's do this. Let me make it very specific. Not like, let me say, what are the 4 books that I'd want my son to read?
Yeah, great. Perfect.
So Against the Odds by James Dyson. Because that book is all perseverance. It's, the 14 years of struggle, 5,127 prototypes. You're just being stubborn about what you want out of life and just not willing to. What was the line you said earlier about Americans? They
don't solve their problems, they overwhelm them.
I think that's a great example, even though Dyson's not American. So that would be up there. I think the Wright Brothers would also be one of my picks because, one, if you really think about it, it's like they were able through ingenuity and unbelievable relentless resourcefulness, they solved one of the longest standing human problems ever. You knew this, for thousands of years, humans had been writing about and trying to figure out how to fly. And even during, and it was really, you know, a ton of people were, that the book does a great job of explaining. It's like the ton of people were doing exactly what the Wright brothers were trying to do as well, but they were way better funded. They had some of the most famous scientists and engineers on their team, and the Wright brothers came out on, were the first ones to do it, and they did it with like $1,500 of profits from like their bicycle shop, which is just like unbelievable. You know, arguably the most resourceful people that have ever lived. So I'd have Wright brothers. I would have Against the Odds. I mean, endurance is a good one just because I do think like by endurance we conquer is one of the best mottos I've ever heard. For a long time. For years on my lock screen, it was a picture of Ernest Shackleton with that beard where he's just covered and crusted in ice. Yeah. So I think like, again, but I think Against the Odds kind of gets that. Like, don't give up on your dreams. So I'm not going to use that slot, but that was, you picked really good ones. It speaks to, again, that you have a talent for this, and you should just be working on your podcast night and day. When you should be making babies, which you're already doing because you're about to have your fourth kid, and you should be working on your podcast. And then you're still working out. Or are you injured?
I took a month off to just get my back 100% right. So I'm going to the sauna every single day, and I'm only doing like stretches and work on my back for this month, and then in April I'm gonna start working out again. Yeah,
because last time I saw you were in phenomenal shape. So you got it, podcast, baby making, health. There's nothing else that you need to do. Okay, so Against the Odds by James Dyson, Wright brothers. I'm gonna mention the Caro book, the second in his series on Lyndon Johnson, The Means to Ascent. It really talks about like, have you ever read Robert Caro's book called Work? Where it goes into how he does his process?
No, I would love that.
There's a phenomenal story from that book. I'm going to read it to you real quick. So the reason I'd put that up there is because, I mean, the whole series is excellent. I think Masters of Senate is probably the one I like the least in the series. But LBJ's, I'm really big on personal mottos. And so LBJ's personal motto was, do everything and you will win. Do everything and you will win. Very similar to Napoleon when he says, you know, all the events hang on the tiniest like little detail or whatever. And like most people, and I forgot the exact way he says it, like most people don't actually seize like the opportunity that's in front of them.
By the way, you talk about that quote, someone who was it? Anyways, one of my friends brought up his favorite quote of Napoleon, which was really good, which is kind of similar idea, but it's just something simple. And it's just in a letter, and he's writing to one of his generals, and he just says, energy, always more activity. Everything relies on you. And he just tells himself that like, there's almost nothing that can't be solved with more energy and activity.
Yeah. I think like, I'm obviously, like I study people for a living. And so I think people are powerful. The best ones change everything. Napoleon's version of this is, he says, in war, men are nothing, and a man is everything.
One man is everything. Yeah.
One man is everything. So the line I was looking for is Napoleon says, all great events hang by a single thread. The clever man takes advantage of everything, neglects nothing that may give him some added opportunity. The less clever man, by neglecting one thing, sometimes misses everything. So LBJ's version of that is, if you do everything, you'll win. And a means of ascent like goes into like exactly what he was willing to do to, and in some cases, like lack of scruples. Like he's very like, you know, people call him corrupt or dishonest, whatever the case is. I think obviously I'm not trying to get my son to be that way, but I think it just explains that there's a lot of people that are out there like that. And if you can channel that in a positive direction, that's great. But also you have to be very careful because other people will do that to you. So it's like there's an offensive element to it that I want to be in a more positive direction, and then also a defensive element that I'd want him to be aware of, like the world that he inhabits, especially if I'm not here anymore. So there's a great line in Robert Caro's book Work, which is again talks about his process of, you know, being the greatest living biographer, but also talks about his two people he's dedicated his life to studying, which is Robert Moses and Lyndon Johnson. And he talked about, he was interviewing all these people. And, you know, Lyndon Johnson's born in unbelievable poverty in the Texas Hill Country. And he gets to, as a young man, he's probably in his early 20s, something like that. And he gets to the position of power where he wants to be, or where he eventually going. He's just working in Washington, D.C. He has no power yet. And they were talking about, I'm just going to read this to you. He goes, I wasn't fully understanding what these people were telling me about the depth of Lyndon Johnson's determination. That is really why I'd want my son to read the book, because it describes the depth of his determination, how determined you can be. About the frantic urgency, the desperation to get ahead and to get ahead fast, and that the passions and the ambitions that he brought, and about the passions and ambitions he brought to Washington, strong though they were somehow intensified by the fact that he was finally there in the place where he'd always wanted to be. This is how I feel about podcasting. This is, if you listen to the episode I did on this book, on Robert Caro's work, if you want to listen to this after we talk, it's not about Lyndon Johnson. I realized like that's about me. That podcast is about me. Just using Lyndon Johnson as a way to tell that story. So he says, I wanted to show the contrast between what he was coming from, the poverty, the insecurity, and what he was trying for. And so what would happen is one of Lyndon Johnson's, the people that's working in the office with him, would see him every morning, just running, full-fledged, 5:30 in the morning, right? And I'm going to read this section to you real quick. She goes, as Lyndon Johnson came up Capitol Hill in the morning, he would be running. No one else is running, okay? He's not out for a jog. He's in a fucking suit, okay? The woman who worked with him coming to work in the morning would see this gangling figure running awkwardly, arms flapping, past the long row of columns on his way to the House office building. At first, because it was winter and she knew that he only owned a thin topcoat, she thought he was running because he was cold. But in spring, the weather turned warm. And still, whenever she saw Lyndon Johnson coming up Capitol Hill, he would be running. Well, of course he was running. From the land of dog-run cabins to this, everything he had ever wanted, everything he had ever hoped for was there. It's beautiful writing. And it's and that's just an excerpt from the book. The entire section is incredible. And so I think, again, Lyndon Johnson, in many ways, a very flawed person. I would not want my son to turn out like him, but I think reading about his life story and understanding the levels of determination would be good. So far I have Against the Odds, Means of Ascent, Wright Brothers. The fourth book that I'd want my son to read. Lessons of History, Will and Era Durant.
Very good.
Biography, 100-page biography of the human species, written by, the greatest, when were they alive? 20th century historians.
Mid-20th.
Dedicated 50 years of their life, literally just talking about what human nature is, what our history is. And then they did this ridiculous goal, which they even said was ridiculous when they did it, but it turned out beautifully, to essentially summarize what they spent half a century learning. And, I think reading that book and rereading it over and over again is unbelievably important.
Have you read or even any book within the bigger series?
The last one, Napoleon, it's not the last one. It's the 10th or 11th.
Age of Napoleon.
The Age of Napoleon. Yeah. No, I have. In fact, I got, somebody had shipped it to me and there wasn't a note. And it was just it was the heaviest thing ever. I found out later on who did it, but it's not even a note here. This is incredible. But yeah, I have every single one of those books in the living room.
Well, David, thanks so much for taking the time. I really do. I appreciate it. Is there anything else that we didn't talk about that we should have talked about?
No, we should do this every once in a while. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I did too. This was great. So
good luck to you and your wife, man. God bless you and the new baby. Just again, super happy for you and super, super envious.
Thanks, dude. I appreciate it. And everyone who's listening, go listen to Founders. It'll change your life. It's great.
Thank you, brother.
And of course, one last shout out to Speechify. I find that listening while I read really helps me comprehend and retain more from my reading. Speechify is the best in the business at text-to-speech AI. And if you want, you can even listen in my voice. So go to speechify.com/Ben to get 15% off Speechify Premium. You won't regret it.